Do tiny homes actually have a smaller footprint? Do they do what everyone's claiming that they're doing? Are they actually minimizing their ecological footprint? Well, to talk about all this, first we actually have to get down to the definition of a tiny home. See, a tiny home is usually a home with a square footage of less than 400 feet, and rarely do they ever exceed 500 square feet. It generally depends on who you ask, but the under 400, under 500 is usually the standard definition. Our tiny home has a main living space of 239.86 square feet, and we've been living in it for the last 2 years. We're gonna tell you exactly the footprint that we have compared to a regular home, and we're gonna start right now. Building materials. I think that's kind of an obvious one. It's smaller. It's a smaller home. It takes less to put it together. Less lumber, plywood, siding, paint, electrical cables, all of it. There's just less to put a tiny home together that there would be a normal home or a full-size apartment building. Even apartments, it would probably take less than an apartment because, I mean, apartments, you have a lot more drywall, mud, that sort of thing. There's none of that in here. So I would say point to tiny home, a lot less materials used.
Lots, I would say, for sure. We use propane to heat our tiny home. It is a very small space, so we don't use a lot of propane to heat it. Grant you, in the winter months, we do use more, but in the summer months, we use virtually none. A normal house would use electricity. We use less propane than they use electricity because it's a tinier space. We could arguably use wood to heat our tiny home, but that's a whole nother video. The only thing that may use less electricity is, say, an apartment or a duplex, because they're sharing walls and sharing heat from each other. So because of this, we'll call it a draw.
Excluding heat, though, electrical is something that I want to talk about. Whew, don't mind me, hands are getting cold. But we have a 30 amp hookup service. Most houses are hooked up to 200 amps. 200 versus 30. 200 versus 30. I mean, that's a big significant difference. We're not using all of our 30, and a house isn't using their entirety of 200 amps either. But I can guarantee you, a house can't run off 30 amps because you have your washer, your dryer, you have your dishwasher, you have your electrical stove, your full-size fridge, you got your big screen TV, maybe multiple of them, your Xbox, PlayStation 5, your router. The list goes on for the amount of electrical running through a home. 30 amps doesn't power that much. We don't have a full-size fridge. We have, well, I mean, you can argue full-size. It's not like a giant fridge by any means. We have a small washer and dryer, and we do have to be careful with running certain things because we can blow breakers with only 30 amps. So the amount of electrical versus the amount of electrical in your home, heat excluded, mind you, it's a significant difference. Point tiny home. You good if we go inside for the rest of this? I'm getting cold.
Yeah, it's really cold out here.
Okay, let's do it. Let's go in. It's honestly not super cold out today. It's like minus 15, 16, 17, but something about filming outside, you don't really move and it just gets cold fast. Okay, so since we're inside now, the next one is certainly space. You got this one?
I do, because I feel like this one will affect women more. We like to shop. So we have a very small space. We can't fit a ton of stuff in this space. Clothing, decor. I've had to cut back a lot of things that I buy. If I buy a new shirt, I'm probably getting rid of a shirt to replace it. So we buy less stuff.
Now, to be fair, like I do like to shop too. I do have tools and things, and I have seen comments before is my tools wouldn't fit in a tiny home. You're right. We do have a shipping container. That is our garage, our shed, our tool space, if you will, that stores that sort of stuff. So that is something to consider, but even still, don't have a whole lot of space for a lot of tools. So I've had to minimize that and cut down that shopping too. Okay, I do want to set the camera up here because I've got some information that I really want to hammer down. Sorry. There. So this one is a little bit more in depth. It is water usage. Now I went and actually did the math on this because our tank is 250 gallons. We have a 250 gallon tank under the house and we fill that up. How often would you say?
Once a week at max.
Yeah, once every like 7 to 9 days, sometimes even up to 10 days. But so we'll just say every week because that's what I did the math for, I think. So the average person's household For 2 people, that's what I did the math on because we're 2-person household, they use approximately 1,500 gallons of water on a weekly basis. 1,500. We just said we use how much? 250 gallons. 250.
Whoa, I did not think it'd be that difference. But it's the toilet, I guess, hey?
The toilet is a big one because we use a composting toilet. That's the next topic. But I actually calculated the efficiency percentage of that means of our home versus an average 2-person home. So approximately that equals out to 166.67% more efficient in water usage compared to the average 2-person home in North America. Point, tiny home.
Big point, tiny home.
Mic drop. No, I'm not going to wreck the mic, but I am going to pass it over to Nicole, who's going to cover composting toilets.
We use a composting toilet in our tiny home. That would be versus a normal flush toilet in a regular home. So a flush toilet, it's using so much more water. A composting toilet uses no water. So the flush toilet, it goes into the sewer, I guess, right? And the sewer has to be treated. So the treatment plants are using electricity, putting pollution into the air. And then once everything's treated, it's going into what? Our rivers, our oceans, and that doesn't seem very good. So a composting toilet, it turns our organic waste within about 12 months into soil. It's going back into the earth. We're not necessarily growing fruits and vegetables with that because that would be a little bit weird. Weird. But it's going back into the earth, not creating pollution, not using unnecessary electricity. And I would say that's a huge win for a huge point for tiny home living.
Celebratory drink because I think tiny home wins on the economical footprint. Eco-friendly, I think that's what I was trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Eco-friendly footprint division. We have had comments of people calling us out being like, tiny homes aren't even that eco-friendly. Their footprint isn't even smaller. Pretty sure it is. I'm pretty sure we gave enough evidence that it is. Even if you just look at the number aspect of what we gave, the 12 months for the decomposition of organic waste. I like how you put that.
Well, the water alone, I would say.
The water is massive. Mm-hmm. The composting toilet doesn't use water, and that's a big reason why water consumption in tiny homes with composting toilets are way less. And I think Honey wants to be a drink.
She wants something.
But are they eco-friendly? You bet they are. Your footprint is much smaller in a tiny home. Not always. And I'm not saying just tiny homes on wheels. Tiny homes in general. If you have a small apartment in New York City, chances are your footprint is a hell of a lot smaller than someone
with a 2,400 square foot home.
Yeah, and a double garage, and they've got a big dually jacked up pickup truck parked in that garage. I know a lot of guys like that, and trust me, their footprint is not small. Something on them might be small, but it's not their footprint, so.
Arguably though, the New York apartment you said probably does have the smallest footprint of anything, I would say.
No, because we do have 2 vehicles. Someone living in a big city like that, they're probably not even having a vehicle because they can walk everywhere.
Yeah.
So their footprint is probably even smaller than ours.
Totally.
So this isn't just tiny homes on wheels. It's tiny homes that fit into the category of being tiny, under that 500 square foot.
Yeah, it's small living, basically.
It is small living. And it's a whole different game than people who've never experienced it can realize. Mm-hmm. Love it. Recommend it.
Yeah.
It's good for the environment.
Yeah, we're good for the environment.
Yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you for watching so much. We'll talk to you guys later in the next video. Don't forget, like, subscribe, comment, and click that little bell thingy for notifications whenever we upload. Cheers.
Cheers.